For those of you that don't know me, I'm Tommy Tomlinson. I've been here almost 3 years. For those that do know me, I'm Tommy Tomlinson. I've been here about 3 years. I'm going to do a short presentation on Prince Hall Masonry. I've done one before, but I've lost all my paperwork, so I tried to put some together. Prince Hall in Masonry has been here for a long, long time, and I'll get into some of the history of that in just a minute. The Grand Lodge of Texas for Prince Hall Masonry is about a block from the old Masonic Home and School in Fort Worth. They've got a big large building over there and an African museum, Prince Hall African and Museum. They do give tours. It might be interesting someday for us to get a tour together and go over and just look at it. There are tremendous similarities between Prince Hall Masonry and the AF and AM. They're basically the very same. They started in the very same in the 1800s when Prince Hall and 3 or 4 other men became Masons up in Boston, Massachusetts. So I'm going to do some reading of some things that I put together, and then I'm going to show you some slides. You'll notice as an example, the Grand Chapter of Holy Royal Arch Masons. That may look very similar to our own Royal Arch Masons. It's the same symbolism, it's the same understanding. They cover everything that we cover, whether it's Shrine or Scottish Rite. They've got what they have a chapter called a youth mentoring program that would be similar to our Demolays. So we're very, very close to each other in practice. And they are Masons. They learned exactly the very same work that we as Masons took as entered apprentice and fellowships and masters. So in that sense, we're all very much brothers. I've always felt like if we're going to straighten some things out in this country, men of good nature like ourselves and the Prince Hall Masons and the Knights of Columbus and the veterans and everybody would come together one day and say, this stuff is going to change Monday. And it may be a bloodbath, but I think we could get the country back to where it needs to be. That's just my own personal feeling. I don't feel like in my lifetime and probably your lifetimes that we will ever join each other. My understanding right now is that the Grand Lodge of Texas and the Grand Lodge Prince Hall of Texas recognize each other as Masons. They will recognize cross-visitation, but the last time I checked, if I want to visit a Prince Hall Lodge, which I'm welcome to do, I have to have permission from the Grand Master of Texas and the Grand Master of the Prince Hall, and of course the Worshipful Master of the Lodge. One of the differences in their lodge is they do full form tuxedo every meeting, which we don't happen to do. And one of my slides at the end I'll show you because it's got costuming of everything that we wear, the same hats, the same aprons, the same everything that we do. So I'm going to sit down and read a couple of things to you, and then we'll go over some of these slides. This is a part of a presentation that was written by Dr. Charles Harris Wesley, a PhD, about some of the history of Prince Hall. It says, Prince Hall, our founder, was one of the great Americans, a worthy Grand Master associated with our first Grand Lodge and its expansion. His name is carried and borne by our Masonic organizations in the United States and thousands of Masons who regard themselves as descendants from the Grand Lodge of England, from which received his authority more than 2 centuries ago, which they did. They eventually applied for a charter from the Grand Lodge of England, and it was granted. It took them 3 years to actually get the approval back to America. The first time they sent the money and everything over there, it disappeared. So the second time they sent the money over there and it disappeared. So the third time they found somebody else that they could trust, and they took the money with the application and all, and a charter was granted for the Grand Lodge of the Negro lodges. We in America celebrated in 1976 the 200th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence. This was also the 221st or 201st anniversary of the founding of the Prince Hall Masonry. It's a monument to Prince Hall's life, career, and leadership. Now, when they formed the lodges, there's still discussions today about what really happened. I was always told coming up in Masonry that the reason that there is a black lodge is that the blacks decided they wanted to have black-only lodges, and that was against our normal principles because we come together as everybody. I was also told the same thing about the Mormons, that the Mormons wanted to have only Mormon lodges, so we couldn't join each other, and they had the same kind of a thing with the Catholics. There's mention over at the Grand Lodge of Texas. It says the reason that we have Prince Hall lodges is the whites didn't want anything to do with us. So they left the lodges and they formed their own lodges, and later petitioned the Lodge of England for a charter, which was granted. So they have the same standing in America as we as AF and AM have. So it's F and AM, Free and Accepted Masons, rather than Ancient Free and Accepted Masons. Many rumors of the birth of Prince Hall have arisen. Few records and papers have been found of him either in Barbados, where it was rumored he was born, but no record of birth by church or state has been found there, and none in Boston. All 11 of the countries were searched, and churches with baptismal records were examined without a find of the name of Prince Hall. The first record that we have of Prince Hall is a manumission paper filed by William Hall of Boston and found in the Boston Athenaeum. This document tells us that Prince Hall has lived with us 21 years and served us well upon all occasions, for which reasons we materially give him his freedom, and that he is no longer to be reckoned a slave, but has always been accounted as a free man by us, as he has served us faithfully. Upon that account we have given him his freedom, as witness our hands this 9th day of April of 1770. Now they did join the military, and it was a military lodge in Boston that actually started the lodge there and accepted the blacks into it. There were probably a half a dozen people that came in at that particular time, and of course it was expanded over a period of time. Significant event in Masonry: on March the 6th, 1775, Prince Hall and 14 other men were initiated in Masonry through warrant number 459, which is still in the possession of the National Grand Lodge of Prince Hall. John Bate, who was of the 38th Foot Regiment of the British Army, having enlisted in 1759 and learning of the American cause, re-enlisted in its army. And then it lists some of the attendees and the enlistees of the Masons. A permit was issued for these Masons to meet as African Lodge Number 1, and they became the first black Masons in the United States. Prince Hall enlisted and served as a soldier in the 2nd and 6th Regiments of Massachusetts. In this connection, George Williams, historian, wrote in 1884 that he saw hard service. We know by the record of the 2 regiments he served in, always distinguished for steadiness and valor. Prince Hall was not only a good soldier, he was a statesman. So I worked long and hard to try to get some of the comparisons between the AF and AM and the F and AM. So after thousands of hours of work, I did one of those chat GPs that you can just put in a question and it will write an essay for you. So what I said was, please write an essay listing the various organizations within Prince Hall Masonry. Prince Hall Masonry is a vibrant and expansive organization that encompasses a wide range of lodges, grand lodges, and other affiliated groups across the United States and beyond. Here is an overview of some of the key organizations within Prince Hall Masonry. You're going to say it's going to sound a whole lot to you like the history of our own masonry, because it's going to have some of the same naming. Grand Lodges. Each state within the United States has its own Prince Hall Grand Lodge, which serves as the governing body for all Prince Hall Masonic lodges within that state. The Grand Lodge is responsible for managing the affairs of local lodges, organizing community events and outreach programs, and overseeing the initiation and education of its new members. Well, Grand Lodge of Texas, AF and AM, does exactly the same kind of thing. Lodges. Local Prince Hall Masonic lodges exist in virtually every state, providing a space for members to gather, discuss Masonic teachings, and engage in community service and philanthropic work. These lodges may be named after prominent African American figures or may carry other significant meanings to members. Appendant bodies. Prince Hall Masonry features a range of appendant bodies, each of which is associated with a particular area of focus or interest. For example, the Order of the Eastern Star is a Masonic organization for women that builds upon the fraternal principles of Masonry, while the Prince Hall Shriners support medical care for children in need. There are many other appendant bodies with Prince Hall Masonry, including the Knights of Pythagoras, the Heroines of Jericho, and the Daughters of Isis, among others. Masonic youth organizations, which are similar to our DMLA, Prince Hall Masonry places a strong focus on supporting the growth and development of young people, and as such, there are a variety of Masonic youth organizations available to young men and women. The Order of DMLA, which they also join now, is a Masonic youth organization for young men between the ages of 12 and 21, while the International Order of Job's Daughters and International Order of the Rainbow Girls offer similar programs for young women. I don't know how long blacks were admitted into the white lodges in the North. I know that my father-in-law was a member in Michigan, and they had black members there. I know some years ago, probably in the mid-90s, I flew to Florida to see a friend of mine who was getting his master's degree, and when he was getting his master's degree, they were also conferring EA degrees on three gentlemen that happened to be black in that lodge in Florida. So it has spread across the country. I think it's as close as Kansas, where they accept each other and do cross visitation, or they accept membership into the lodges as such. Scottish Rite. The Scottish Rite is a Masonic organization that dates back to the 18th century, and which focuses on deepening members' understanding of Masonic teachings and philosophy. The Scottish Rite has its own set of degrees and rituals which complement those of regular Masonry, and one of the largest Masonic organizations in the world. When I received my 33rd, I went to Washington for it, and there is a separate organization of Scottish Rite, Prince Hall Masons, that have the same hierarchy as we have with our Scottish Rite. So like when we had the banquet and all, or when we had the meetings, the head of their Scottish Rite was there as a complement to the normal AF and AM Scottish Rite that we're familiar with. The York Rite. The York Rite is another Masonic organization that builds upon the teachings and philosophy of regular Masonry. Its degrees and rituals are rooted in the allegories and symbolism of the ancient city of York, and it is made up of various bodies, including the Royal Arch Masons, like ourselves here, the Cryptic Masons, and the Knights Templars. So they have exactly the same kind of a structure that we have with their York Rite. Sovereign Grand Lodge of the United States. The Sovereign Grand Lodge of the United States is the highest Masonic authority within the Scottish Rite. It is responsible for overseeing all Scottish Rite organizations within the United States and plays a key role in advancing the organization's philosophical and charitable goals. Overall, Prince Hall Masonry is a rich and multifaceted organization that offers a range of opportunities for members to deepen their understanding of Masonic philosophy, engage in community service and philanthropic work, and support the growth and development of young people. whether through local lodges, grand lodges, appendant bodies, or other affiliated groups. Members of Prince Hall Masonry have a deep sense of pride in their organization and its history, and are committed to furthering its noble mission for years to come. And one other thing I wanted to read to you. See what I did with it. No, I read that. To give you an idea, we're sitting here looking at their symbolism, and that's the most excellent Prince Hall. Did it again. This thing will time out on you. The most excellent Prince Hall Grand Chapter Holy Royal Archmasons of Texas. You'll notice it's got the same symbolism that we've got. The most illustrious Prince Hall Grand Council Royal and Select Masters of Texas. Sometimes the symbolism is different, sometimes the wording is different. Like I said, they took exactly the same memory work that we took as Master Masons, but there can be some differences across the different states. I know when I went to Oklahoma and I had to be examined to attend the lodge, and I watched a master's degree, there were a few differences in it on how Oklahoma does it and how Texas does it. If you go to Louisiana, there'll be a few differences, and it may be in the wording, it may be in the script, or the way that they present something. But overall, it's the same basic tenets and the same basic philosophies that they taught us as Master Masons. The whole thing is to make good men better. It's not to make bad men good. You can't get into Masonry if you've got felony convictions and things like that. So our whole object is to take people that are already good and help them become better men. So that's what we all try to do. You'll notice they've got a commandery. The Lone Star, that's the Texas Commandery Knights Templar Masons of Texas, Prince Hall. Texas Council of Deliberation, which is their ancient and accepted Scottish rite. So they will have the same symbolism. You'll notice that in the south, the eagle has its wings down. In the north, on the northern jurisdiction, and of course there's a small area where there's a north jurisdiction, and 90% of the United States is covered by the southern jurisdiction. The northern jurisdiction has the wings up on the eagle symbolism. I found that out when I ordered a badge one time for my 33rd, and they sent me one with the eagles up. And I said, well, that's not our symbolism. And they said, well, it is up in the north. So they redid it for me. There's the Norris Wright Trinity chapter Order of the Eastern Star. So they have the same Eastern Star type thing that we have, and it's a ladies' organization within the Prince Hall of America. So they have exactly the same kind of things. And then they do some other things like the Grand High Court Heroines of Jericho. Their youth mentoring program is the Knights of Pythagoras, and that would be very similar in nature to our DeMolays. Although now DeMolays in the United States accept blacks into all the chapters of all the states. So here in Texas, where maybe the lodge doesn't accept blacks across yet, they do in DeMolay. So they're able to do DeMolay and I believe Rainbow Girls and that kind of a thing. So more and more we're associating with each other. I don't believe that we will ever actually join each other as one body because of the organizations. Who's going to give up their leadership? Who's going to say, well, okay, you're going to run this now? There's no way that can ever come together without it being a total charge of racism. Because if we all come together and vote and it ends up with a white being in charge, they're going to say racism. If it ends up with a black being in charge, we're going to say racism. So I don't think we will ever be able to join each other fully. I do see a time down the road where we will be able to do more things together and do more things for the community together and recognize each other as good people. I personally feel like if I know the man is a Prince Hall Mason, I have more faith in him than I would in just an average citizen. The same way I feel with the white American. If I know he's a Mason, he may not be good, But 99% of the time, it's somebody that I can trust, it's somebody I can believe in, it's somebody I can work with. And I think someday we will be able to do that. This is just things that I've read to you. But one thing I particularly wanted you to see, if you look at those decorations and the things that they wear with all of their aprons, their fezzes, you look at that red cap on that Scottish Rite. You look at the black cap for the Scottish Rite. They've got a white shrine. They've got a regular shrine. They've got the big fez like we do in York Rite. So all the similarities are there, and all the instruction is there. And I think at some time maybe we can come together. They asked me to make it short. I'll try to answer any questions if I can, but you can go on the web, and they have a website for the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Texas, and you just Google that, say Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Texas, and it will pull up their website, and they have some videos that will give you some members talking about the Prince Hall Masonry and what they do and what they've accomplished and what they're trying to do. So I appreciate your attention, and if you've got any questions, we can try it.
Tommy, as of today, are we allowed to join a Prince Hall Lodge?
I don't know. Like I said, I know we can do cross visitation. I tried to call their Grand Lodge 2 or 3 times, and there wasn't anybody there at the time. I don't know what time they're open to ask a question like that. I really don't know. And I'm not sure about all the differences. I do know as a scandal, the Prince Hall Lodge in Arlington at one time was chastised for, I don't know what you call it, too much hazing, I guess, in their degree.
Why would you want to do that anyway?
And so they got chastised for that. Do what? Somebody said something. So anyway, they were chastised for hazing. But there are Prince Hall lodges across the country. And like I said, for visitation, I understand you have to have permission from both Grand Lodges to visit a Prince Hall Lodge. I probably won't go because I frankly don't want to get all dolled up in a tuxedo and everything to attend the meeting. Yeah, Ed.
I have visited a Prince Hall Lodge in Grand Prairie.
Okay.
A couple of times.
Did you have to get permission from everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
How do you go about doing that?
Well, you have to communicate to our Grand Lodge, and they communicate with their Grand Lodge.
Okay, so like we kind of said, you would have to apply to our Grand Lodge and have to apply to their Grand Lodge, and then obviously the master of any lodge has authority on whether you can visit their lodge or not. Did you have to do an examination?
No, we did not. I found them very hospitable and very courteous.
Okay, so Ed attended a lodge in Grand Prairie and said they were very hospitable and very caring and kind, and he enjoyed it. He did not have to stand examination, which makes sense because you've got permission from your 2 Grand Lodges to go. That ought to be enough to get you into the lodge. So
It was a very informative and enjoyable experience.
good. Did you see a particular degree?
I saw EA and a regular stated meeting.
Okay, an EA and a regular stated meeting, and basically it was the same as what we performed. So like I said, it comes from the same basic tenet. They took exactly the same work back in the 1800s as any other Mason would have taken. So in that sense, we probably ought to all be working together a little more locally for our communities. Yes, Dwight?
Does the Grand Master, once he's out of office, does he keep the title of most worshipful Grand Master, or does he do like we do and say he's right worshipful now?
I don't know for sure, but I'm sure he still carries the title. Anytime you get through one of these organizations, you're going to carry a title to pass something, and it may be worded differently, but I'm sure that they would. Yes, Ed.
Do they serve just 1 year, or do they serve?
The Grand Lodge of Texas covers the Grand Lodge of Texas.
I mean, the Prince Hall.
The Prince Hall Grand Lodge, as I said, the Prince Hall has their own Grand Lodge in the state of Texas.
Right.
And their building is over in Fort Worth, so they cover all Prince Hall lodges in the state of Texas.
Okay, but their Grand Master, does he serve only 1 year?
As far as I know. I had been given some wrong information too. I was told at one time, it kind of got almost like Amos and Andy. I was told that the Grand Master, or that the master of the lodge, owned the lodge and all of its property and everything else, and so he might be the master of the lodge for 10 years or whatever. And I was corrected, and they say, no, it's just like we do. You've got 1 year, and it belongs to the lodge. And, you know, there's a lot of rumor and a lot of things that we don't know about each other because we've never asked. And like I said, I've asked a few questions. I would have asked a few more if I was able to get hold of their Grand Lodge. I started to see if they wanted to send some representative over here and let him do the presentation, because it would certainly be more informative. But I think that will give us good information, and I don't mind looking into it if there's some way that we wanted to go over and tour their building and see their museum and everything. I think they would be acceptable to that, and I think we might invite them to come over and see ours, and come over and see our museum and that kind of a thing, see our building. Anything else? Well, I certainly appreciate you paying attention, and I hope it was informative to you. That just amazed me when I saw that thing went away again. When I saw that picture of all those different uniforms and everything, it just looked like it looked like our regular stuff, and it basically is. Okay, thank you much.
John, good job.